Disengagement, a vicious cycle. Looking at these pictures, these scenes, are any of them familiar? Is this the kind of thing you see in classrooms or schools around you? These are disengaged students. Their focus is not on learning and growth. And this phenomena is all too common in our schools and in our classrooms, and it is not a healthy one. When students are engaged in the learning process, they are more likely to pay attention, think critically, focus, actively engage in the learning process. In fact, they embrace and flourish in it. But disengaged students are more likely to exhibit the opposite behaviors. They do not pay attention, they can't focus, they don't think critically, and they don't participate in the learning process. In fact, they are resistant to it. They get caught in a vicious cycle of disengagement. One behavior reflecting withdrawal feeds directly into others. The cycle of disengagement illustrates the events and behaviors that occur, facilitating students' withdrawal from school or from learning. And students can begin anywhere in this cycle, but let's illustrate it starting with the missed connections circle. Students don't make a connection between real life and what is taught, or between content areas on the same topic. Either these connections are not made explicitly for them, they were not led to discover these connections, or they just didn't make those connections independently. Regardless, this causes them to not see the value and the usefulness in what is being taught. And of course, then there's lack of interest. They're just not interested. Then these feelings are reflected in their body language. They slouch, they put their head down, they stare off into space, or perhaps even engage in off-task behaviors. The result is corrections or consequences from adults or teachers in the environment. And ultimately, other students may start to treat them differently because they're creating a perception of this student as disengaged. Unavoidably, these things lead to less learning, less growth, and lower performance in grades. Then this student who is now upset because of all these other things that have occurred in this cycle of engagement, they've gotten consequences, have lower performance, they've gone through this whole cycle, now they are much less likely to have the motivation to see those connections or to realize value and to show interest. It's a vicious cycle that they're just circling and circling. Again, students could enter the cycle at any time. The previous example, we talked about a student entering at the missed connections circle. But let's look at it a different way. Let's look at perhaps the student has no interest in a topic. So that facilitates they don't see the usefulness or value in it. And now they start showing poor body language. And they're right there engaged in the cycle. Or perhaps a student has poor body language for any number of reasons in life, but they're showing poor body language at school. This causes consequences, perhaps. And then there's lack of interest. So there's an interconnectedness here that bounces around the cycle haphazardly. There is no definite start or end point, and there is no clear order of events. What we do know is that each characteristic contributes to another. This graphic is an addition to the cycle of disengagement. It illustrates the interconnected nature of the behaviors and events of a disengaged student. Thankfully, there are indicators we can use. 12 red flags for disengaged students. This is important to consider when you're evaluating your classroom or classrooms across a building. It summarizes ways to realize that students are mentally withdrawing. Low energy levels, tired, unmotivated, not participating, rarely contribute, and certainly frequent absenteeism. Poor collaboration is another red flag. Have no desire to work with others and don't do it very well when they do. Lack of initiative. They don't want to take any steps to solve problems or improve. And definitely declining performance is one of the red flags, but certainly not the only one. Negative attitudes is included. They just are frustrated or cynical. no interest in their development, have no desire to talk about strengths and areas for growth, and the quiet quitting. Students who absolutely have the ability to be a top performer, but they choose not to. They do the bare minimum to get by. That's a sign of a disengaged student. Also, lack of trust in teachers and school. No feedback or input. Again, they don't want to discuss or give you ideas about how they might be able to improve or grow, or even how they're feeling. And then quick exit. Disengaged students have no desire to stick around. They are the first ones out of the classroom, out of the school. They bolt. They don't want to be there because they are disengaged. Any one of these red flags needs to be considered and addressed. Any one of them is showing that a student is becoming disengaged or is already checked out. Reflect on these pictures a moment of disengaged students. It's utterly heartbreaking. The pain, the misery, the anger that these students are feeling, it's devastating. And it's not okay. Identifying that disengagement is an obstacle being faced in your classroom or in your school is a most important first step, because we can't change it unless we label it. Candidly and decidedly call it out for what it is. Disengagement. Then explicit plans can be made for a campaign to nurture and develop increased engagement in students. These images have to stop. And it's not just because it's impacting our students' achievement. It's wrong. It's wrong in humanity. We do not want our students feeling this way at school. Of course their achievement lags when these are the types of emotions they have attached to school. In closing, disengagement is a problem in many classrooms and schools across the world. It's a primary reason for student underachievement and indifference. It is absolutely a problem, and it's okay that it's a problem if we deal with it. The problem of disengagement can't be ignored or run away from. It's not going to go away on its own. It's not just going to disappear. It will stay until we make a change to impact it. Students are not engaging in their learning environments for a reason. That's what needs to be identified. The learning environment has to change so that students want to be engaged in it. So the best way to escape this problem is to solve it. We have to identify and change the learning environments that are not inspiring, that are not nurturing student engagement. Problems are only opportunities, and that's absolutely the truth. This is an opportunity for us as educators to make a positive difference in the world of education and to positively impact the future. It may not be easy. Improvement is not always a straight upward line. It's going to be hard work. But student engagement is a major change lever. We must focus on engagement and use it to enhance education, to better it for our kids. We can serve them better, and they deserve it. Embrace this opportunity. We know disengagement is a problem. We know that it feeds into many, many other problems that could exist in schools. Let's embrace it. Let's work it. Let's create environments that students want to be engaged with. Ensure 100% student engagement in your learning environments. As a note, if you want to know more about the other side of the coin, the engagement side, which is much more exciting to talk about, there are 12 things great teachers do to engage students. And I have a video and a blog about that on my website and in my YouTube channel. Until then, focus on getting 100% student engagement. Good luck.